The water is running clear and cold across the ford right now, and I can hear it worrying at the stones the way a dog worries at a bone, low and steady and patient. The snow along both banks sits near 2 feet deep and blue in the shadow of the pines, and the wind comes down the valley with a knife in its teeth. My feet are already wet through, and the cold is climbing up my legs like a thing with fingers, testing me, feeling for a way in. The fire behind me is small and hungry and cracking against the dark. I have crossed 100 fords like this one, and every one of them looked as harmless as this. The country is quiet, and the quiet is the first lie it ever tells you. I did the thing that ought to have worked. I found the clear water, the shallow water, the reading water where every man is taught to cross, and I stepped in where it looked kindest and slowest and safest. And the country near enough took my life for it. It came for me the way a stove goes cold in the night, so gentle you do not notice until the last of the warmth is gone. I stood in water that any man would have called safe. I read it wrong, the way near everybody reads it wrong, and it near buried me. Now here is the plain and backward truth of it. The easy crossing, the calm and the clear and the pretty crossing, has put more good fur traders in the ground than every grizzly that ever walked this country. I know that sounds like foolishness. A bear is a terror you can see, a thing with claws and weight and a roar that empties your belly. A river you know to fear looks like a river you know to fear. But it was never the roaring water that took the most of them, and it was never the bear. I know how backward that sounds, so stay with me. That calm, clear ford will not warn you. It will not warm you. It will not hold you when your foot goes out from under you and the cold takes your breath in one fist. It looks like mercy, and it acts like a trap. It gives you one thing and one thing only, and that one thing is a feeling. It gives you the feeling of safety, and that feeling is a liar, a false friend, a promise the country has no intention of keeping. The pretty water tells you it will let you pass, and then it closes over you like a lid. Nobody teaches this anymore. Nobody sits a young man down beside the fire and tells him the truth of the calm ford. There were men once who made their whole living guiding folks across this country, and there was money in telling you the crossing was easy, and no money at all in telling you it might kill you. A guide who frightens his party does not get hired the next season. So the warning got softened, and then it got quiet, and then it got plain forgotten. The fix for this costs you nothing. It weighs nothing, and it lives right there in your own 2 eyes and your own good sense. And it is the very thing that most men throw away the second they see clear water. They see the calm, and they toss out their caution like a man tossing gristle in the dirt. They walk right past the one habit that would carry them home. They scrape it off their boots without ever knowing they had it. I will hand it to you before we are done, but not yet. Keep listening, because once you see this, you will never look at a calm crossing the same way again. You will stand on a bank and read it different for the rest of your days. That is a promise. Let me tell you who I am, so you know these are not just words. I ran a trap line up in the high country for the better part of my life, alone, from the first hard freeze until the ice began to rot come spring. The nearest living soul was 2 days' walk from my cabin, and between me and him ran a river that froze treacherous and never froze true. I have gone a week on nothing but boiled bark tea and stubbornness. I have knelt on a frozen bank with my hands so far gone I could not work the buttons on my own coat. I learned the water the only way a man ever truly learns anything, which is by needing to know it so badly that being wrong meant dying. This kind of knowing does not come from being told. It comes from the cold getting hold of you once and never fully letting go. The men who taught me the water did not learn it from any book. They learned it from the ones who did not come back, and from the ones they had to pull out cold and blue and heavy. They read the current with their eyes because they had buried friends who read it with their hopes. Every rule they gave me had a name behind it, a man behind it, a grave behind it. When an old hand tells you a calm ford is a killer, he is not guessing. He is remembering a face, and he does not want to remember yours. Here is what most folks have flat backward. They believe that rough water is the danger and calm water is the safety, and it is very near the opposite of the truth. They see white water tumbling and roaring over rocks, and they know in their bones to keep clear of it, and that instinct is a good one, and it keeps them alive. Then they come to a stretch that runs smooth and glassy and quiet. Water so clear you can count the pebbles on the bottom. Water that barely seems to move at all. And every muscle in them relaxes. They see a broad, calm sheet flowing like poured glass in the low sun, sliding along without a whisper, and it looks like the safest place on the whole river. It looks like a pond you could walk across. It looks like the country finally being kind to a tired man. A traveler comes to it worn down and cold, with miles behind him and his pack cutting into his shoulders, and that calm water is the sweetest sight he has seen all day. He walks straight into it with an easy heart. That easy heart is the first thing the river takes. Now hold on to this next part, because it is the whole spine of everything I am going to tell you. A man can drown in water that barely reaches his knees. I will say that again so it sits right. A man can drown, dead and gone, in a calm stretch of river no deeper than the length of your forearm. Water he could have stood up in the whole time. I am going to show you exactly how a thing like that happens, how the shallow calm kills where the deep roar does not. But not yet. Keep it in the back of your mind while I lay the rest of it down. Turn it over while I talk. A grown, strong man drowned in knee-deep water on a crossing he called safe. The danger here is built the way all the worst dangers in the country are built, out of two forces meeting where a man does not expect them. It is the cold and the current, working together, each one making the other deadlier. The cold does one job, and the calm water does another. And a man watches for neither, because he is watching for the bear and the white water instead. Late winter is the killing time for this, when the snow melt swells the rivers and the water runs at its coldest and its heaviest all at once. The country in that season looks like it is softening toward spring, the days a little longer, the sun a little warmer on your face. But the water underneath is colder and stronger and more full of murder than it is in the dead of the freeze. That soft-looking season is the meanest season there is. The banks look gentle, and the water looks calm, and the whole valley looks like it is letting its guard down, and none of it is true. The country wears its kindest face in the exact season it is most likely to kill you. Here is the cruel logic of the calm ford, and you must understand it, or nothing else will hold. The calmest water, the clearest water, the water that looks the shallowest and the safest, is very often the deepest and the strongest water on the whole river. A river runs smooth and quiet precisely where it runs deep, because there are no rocks near the surface to break it up and make it roar. The white water roars because it is shallow and rocky and the current is fighting the stones. The calm water is silent because it is deep and unobstructed, and the whole weight of the river is sliding through it at once, smooth and heavy and fast. So the traveler, reading the water the natural way, the obvious way, the way that feels exactly like good sense, walks toward the quiet because the quiet looks safe. He chooses the deepest, strongest, coldest part of the river and calls it the safe part. He does the sensible thing and the sensible thing walks him into the deep. That clear bottom he can see so plainly is not close. The water magnifies it and flattens it and makes 3 feet look like 1. He steps in, expecting the pebbles to be right under his boot, and there is nothing there, and the smooth, heavy current already has him. Every step he takes toward what looks like safety takes him further from the shallows and deeper into the pool. The calmer it looks, the harder it is taking hold. He is digging his own hole with every stride, and it feels like walking to dry land. Now here is where most folks go wrong, so lean in close, because if this next piece does not land, nothing else I tell you will keep you alive. Calm means safe. Clear means shallow. Quiet means gentle. Those 3 beliefs live in nearly every man who was not raised on hard water, and every one of them is dead wrong. Calm can mean deep enough to drown a horse. Clear can mean a bottom twice as far down as your eye swears it is. Quiet can mean a current strong enough to walk your legs out from under you before you have taken your 3rd step. Reading a river by how it looks on top is like judging a well by the ring around its mouth. What you can see tells you almost nothing about the thing that will kill you. It is a key with no teeth cut into it, a key that fits the lock and turns nowhere. You have the shape of knowing and none of the substance of it, and the country does not grade you on the shape. The people who lived on this land for 1,000 winters running almost never died at the calm ford. They knew the water the way you know the sound of your own breathing, from the inside, from before they could talk. They did not read the river by its prettiness. They read it by its habits, by where the deep channel ran, and where the gravel bars built up, and where the cold pooled, and where the current cut hardest against the far bank. A child raised on that water knew to distrust the smooth, glassy stretch, the way you know to distrust thin, new ice. It was not a rule they were taught once and forgot. It was in the blood, and in the hands, and in 1,000 crossings watched from the time they could walk. And the ones who died were almost always the newcomers, the traders and the trappers and the travelers who came into the country and watched the local people cross and copied the doing without ever learning the knowing. They saw a man walk into the water at a certain place, and they thought the place was safe. They never understood that the man was reading 100 things they could not see, choosing his line by knowledge they did not have. They copied the where and missed the why entirely. Copying the doing without the knowing is how the country thins out the newcomers every single spring. I am going to hand you the fix in layers now, the same way it was handed to me across a good many winters. Because if I dumped the whole of it on you at once, it would run through you like water through a cracked gourd and hold no weight at all. The first layer turns your whole head around. The thing you have been chasing, the calm and the clear, is not the thing that saves you. It is the thing that draws you in. Rough is the reading, and calm is the lie. Say that over to yourself until it sticks. The broken, noisy, shallow water that every instinct tells you to avoid is very often the water that will let you across alive. Because broken water is shallow water. And shallow water you can stand in when your foot slips. The pretty water is the bait, and the ugly water is the bridge. Now the second layer, and this one carries a small sting of shame to it, because it asks you to do a thing that looks foolish, a thing a proud man feels above doing. Most travelers who died at the ford died because they were too proud or too hurried to test the water before they trusted it. They felt it was beneath a capable man to poke and prod and fuss at a crossing that looks so plainly easy. A grown man does not tiptoe into knee-deep water, or so his pride tells him, and his pride is a sorry source of counsel on a cold riverbank. That very feeling, that little flush of embarrassment at being so careful over such an easy-looking thing, is exactly why the knowing has gone into the ground. Men would rather look bold and drown than look timid and live. The habit that saves you feels beneath you, and so you throw it away. And the river thanks you for it. The disgust a proud man feels at testing an easy ford is the very reason that easy ford is still killing proud men. I will give you the third layer now, the one that lives in your hands and your feet and a stout length of wood. Because knowing is nothing until it moves through the body. Before you set one boot in unknown water, you cut yourself a staff. A good stick as long as you are tall and thick as your wrist. Green wood if you can get it so it will not snap. You strip the twigs off it clean, and you check that it will bear your weight leaned hard against it. Then you face upstream, into the current, never sideways to it, and never with your back to it, because the water wants your back, and you do not give it what it wants. You plant that staff on the upstream side, and you make 3 points of contact with the ground at all times. 2 feet and the staff, or 1 foot and the staff and the other foot searching. You move the searching foot slow, sliding it along the bottom, never lifting it high, feeling for the drop-off and the loose stone and the sudden deep before you ever put your weight down. You loosen the straps of your pack so it will fall away clean if the water takes you. Because a pack that holds to your back in deep water holds you under like a hand. You test every single step as if the whole river were lying to you, because it is. The staff finds the deep hole a full stride before your foot would have found it. And that one stride is the whole distance between a wet leg and a grave. Watch the water climb your staff as you probe, and when it climbs past your thigh where you expected your ankle, you have just been told the truth in time to use it. Our own ancient kin were crossing cold water, leaning on a cut staff and facing the current further back than you can rightly picture, long before anyone scratched a single word onto anything. And the ones who did it lived to pass down the doing, and the ones who did not are the reason the doing exists. Now the fourth layer, the one that sounds like madness until it clicks, because it runs dead against everything your body is screaming at you to do. When the cold water hits you and the current pulls and the fear rises, every instinct tells you to hurry, to rush the last of it, to lunge for the far bank and get it over with. Do less, not more. I will say it again, because everything in you is going to fight it. Do less, not more. The man who rushes the ford is the man who lifts his feet too high and loses his 3 points and gets walked off the shelf into the deep by a current he outran his own caution to reach. Slow is what lives. The whole trick of the deep cold crossing is to move slower than your fear wants you to move, to plant and test and shift your weight like an old man on ice, to let the staff do the finding and never once let the panic do the deciding. The bank will still be there in a minute. You will not be if you run at it. Now circle back to what I told you to hold on to. The strong man drowned in water no deeper than his forearm. Here is exactly how the country does that thing. It is not the depth that kills him. It is the cold. And the cold works faster than any man believes it can. He steps into that snow-melt water, and it is colder than anything his body has a word for. And in the space of a few breaths, the cold reaches into his chest and grips his lungs so he cannot draw a full breath and cannot hold the one he has. His hands, which he needs more than anything now, go clumsy and then go dead, the fingers curling up useless like a spider dropped on a hot stove. His legs, which felt so strong on the bank, begin to fill up heavy and slow and far away, and the current he thought was gentle is now steadily walking those heavy legs out from under him. He slips, just once, just a stumble, the kind of stumble that on dry land is nothing at all. And now he is down, and the water closes over his face. And here is the cruelest part of the whole thing. The cold has already stolen his breath and stiffened his chest. So he cannot hold air, and he cannot fight, and he cannot get his dead hands to push him up. And the smooth, heavy current holds him down flat against the gravel with the patient weight of the whole river. He is in water he could have knelt up in and breathed if his body still answered him. But the cold has cut the ropes between his will and his hands, and he lies there in a foot of water, awake and knowing, unable to lift his own face into the air. That is how a strong man drowns in a puddle. It was never the deep that took him. It was the cold locking the doors of his own body from the inside while he lay in the shallows. That frantic clawing feeling the old accounts all describe. The way a man in cold water thrashes and gasps and cannot make his body do the simplest thing is not weakness, and it is not cowardice, and it is not a man giving up. It is the body screaming one single word louder than the mind can think. The word is warm. Every gasp, every clumsy grab, every wild kick is the body howling that one word into the dark. Warm, warm, warm. And there is no warm to be had, and so it burns through everything it has in seconds, trying to find it. A man who freezes in the water is not failing. He is being drowned out by his own body shouting the one thing it needs and cannot get. And here is the cruel timing the country builds into it. The same joke it plays on a man in every deadly thing it does. The season you most need to cross, the late winter when the traps must be run and the meat must be moved, and a man cannot simply sit in his cabin and wait, is the exact season the water is coldest and highest and most eager to kill you. When the crossing matters least, in the dead heart of the freeze, the river lies still and solid under good ice and asks nothing of you. When the crossing matters most, come the melt, the same river throws off its ice and runs cold and heavy and hungry. The country times its meanness to your need every time. That is not accident, and it is not bad luck. That is the country putting you to the test, and it grades in one mark only. Now let me tell you why nobody ever told you this, and it is nothing dark and nothing hidden. It is quieter and sadder than that. It comes down to money, and it comes down to time. A piece of hard-won knowing only stays alive in people as long as those people actually need it to stay alive. The old crossing wisdom lived because a man's life hung on it every spring, and a thing your life hangs on gets remembered and passed and drilled into the young. Then the country changed. There came a day the bridge went across the river, and a day the road followed the bridge, and a day a man could sit dry and warm in a wagon and cross the same water that used to demand everything he knew. And on that day the knowing began to die. Not with any drama, just quietly, the way a skill nobody needs anymore slips out of the hands of one generation and never reaches the next. Nobody killed the wisdom. It simply stopped being needed. And a thing that stops being needed stops being taught. And a thing that stops being taught is gone inside of 2 generations. The bridge saved 1,000 lives and buried the knowing that had saved 1,000 before it. And then something worse happened, something the modern way does with almost every old truth. The trade took the wisdom and turned it clean upside down and sold it back to folks with a pretty word stamped on it. The old truth said, calm water is the water to fear, and the new way sells you calm as the very picture of peace and safety. A still, smooth lake on a postcard. Calm is the thing every tired soul is supposed to want. Calm became a word they hang on the wall like a virtue. There is no money in telling a man that the calm and the clear will kill him, and there is a great deal of money in selling him the calm and the clear as the reward at the end of his hard road. So the reading of the water got flipped, and the flip got sold, and the flip felt good going down. Understand me plain. This is no plot and no cover-up and no wicked hand working in the shadows. It is only the quiet arithmetic of what sells and what does not. Comfort sells and caution does not. And the truth got left on the bank because nobody could make a coin off it. Let me be straight with you now, the way I would want a man to be straight with me, because I would rather you trust me than be impressed by me. This will most likely never happen to you. Most men who hear this will cross bridges their whole lives long and never once stand at an unknown ford with cold water climbing their legs and a bad choice already half made. If you never leave the road, the calm water will never get its chance at you, and that is the plain truth of it. But if you ever do find yourself in the deep country, off the bridge and off the road, with a river between you and where you need to be, then everything I have told you becomes the difference between walking home and not. It happens to the man who is a little too tired, a little too hurried, a little too sure the easy-looking water is easy. It happens in the season that looks like it is warming toward mercy. It happens at the crossing that looks like the kindest one on the whole river. And here is the part I need you to carry, the part that ought to make you sit up straight. Every single man the calm water ever took thought exactly what you are thinking right now, that it would not be him, that he could read water fine, that this particular ford looked plainly safe. He thought that with a light heart right up until the cold shut the doors of his body and the shallow water closed over his face. Now I will give you the hard proof, so you know this is no fireside tale I am spinning to keep you listening. There was a manual put out for the men of the United States Army, a survival booklet meant for soldiers who might find themselves alone in cold and broken country, and it laid down the crossing of cold rivers in hard, plain words. Face upstream, use a staff on the upstream side, loosen your pack, never trust the smooth water. Those words were not written by a man dreaming at a desk. They were set down because too many strong young men had already been lost at crossings that looked like nothing, and somebody meant to stop the next ones from dying the same fool way. There was a man who wrote and taught a great deal about living through the cold country, a northern traveler named Wilhelmer Stephenson, who spent years among the people who knew that land in their bones. And he set down, again and again, that it was never the dramatic danger that killed the newcomer. It was the small, ordinary thing done wrong. He watched men who trusted the look of the water instead of the reading of it, and he watched what the country did to them for it. And there is an account, plain and true, of a party that came to a smooth, clear crossing, and one man among them, raised on hard water, refused the pretty line and cut a staff and faced the current and probed his way across the ugly, broken shallows, while the others laughed at his fuss. And the current took one of the confident ones at the calm ford that same hour, and the careful man walked home. That is no legend. That happened. So here is the whole of it, small enough to carry out of here in your head. 5 things and no more. Never judge a river by how calm it looks, because the calm is where it runs deepest and strongest. Always cut a staff, and always face upstream, and always keep 3 points of contact with the ground. Always loosen your pack straps before you enter the water, so the river cannot use your own load to hold you under. Move slower than your fear wants you to move, and let the staff find the deep hole before your foot does. And when in doubt, do not cross at all, because no bank on the far side is worth what the cold water will charge you for reaching it. Here is the real lesson, and it is bigger than any river. Those men did not die because the country was cruel to them. The country was only ever just the country, doing what cold water and low sun and late winter have always done, without spite and without mercy and without one thought of them at all. They died because they were certain. They were sure they could read the water, sure the calm meant safe, sure it would not be them. and that certainty walked them into the deep with a light heart. The wilderness never kills the humble man half as fast as it kills the sure one. So carry this small and carry it plain. The calm, clear water is the water to fear. The ugly, broken water is the bridge. Cut a staff and face the current, and go slow. And never once let an easy-looking crossing talk you out of your caution. This knowing nearly went into the ground with the men who paid for it, and I will not stand by and watch it go. Now tell me something. I would truly like to know it. Did you have a grandfather or an old aunt or some weathered soul in your family who could read a thing in the land the way most folks never could? Water or weather or ice? And what did they tell you that you have never forgotten? Next time I will hand you a thing that sounds like pure foolishness until you understand it. That the driest wood in the whole forest is very often the wood that will not keep you alive through the night. And I will show you why the dry that looks like a gift is the dry that lets your fire die. Take care of your fire tonight, and do not ever let calm water tell you it is shallow.